Amanda's words cut deeper than I could have imagined. She stood there in my son's kitchen, her wedding dress draped behind her like some cruel reminder of what I'd paid for. "The greatest gift you could give us," she said with that fake little grin, "is to disappear." And Michael, my only child, nodded along like it was nothing. He couldn't even look me in the eye. Before I explain, do me a favor. Hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I need to know you're with me for this ride, because this story, it still shakes me. 3 years ago, I sold the Victorian house my late husband and I had spent decades restoring. Every penny, $87,000, went straight to Michael and Amanda, so they could buy the dream house they wanted. I gave it with a mother's heart, believing their promise that I'd always belong here, that I'd always have a place. And now, on the eve of the very wedding I'd been funding, Amanda decided I was disposable. "You're spoiling our special weekend," Michael finally muttered. His voice was colder than I'd ever heard. Spoiling? I'd spent the day arranging flowers, the week helping with preparations, the month swallowing Amanda's complaints. The only thing I'd done wrong was suggest that maybe we didn't need swan-shaped ice sculptures, so I asked quietly, "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" Amanda shrugged, eyes fixed on her manicure. "I don't care. Hotel, your sister's, wherever. Just not here tomorrow." "This is my son's house, too," I reminded her. Michael cleared his throat. "It's more Amanda's, really. She's handled all the finances. You just gave us some money once." "Some money once." My life savings, dismissed in a single sentence. I stared at the counters I'd picked, the cabinets my money had built, the rooms I thought would hold family dinners for years. They'd taken everything and convinced themselves it was owed. Something shifted inside me then. Not broken, but reset, a gear clicking into place. "You're right," I said softly. "I'll go." Amanda's eyes widened. She'd expected drama, tears, begging. Instead, I packed quietly, while they downstairs debated whether my room would make a better yoga studio or office. Guest room, they'd always called it. Never my room. Guests, after all, leave. As I folded my clothes, I touched Robert's photo. 43 years married, and not once had he made me feel unwanted. "Don't worry, love," I whispered. "They haven't seen the last of me." I carried my suitcase out to the car, sat behind the wheel, and pulled out my phone. Not outside. Their house. Outside the house I had bought. "Margaret," I said when my lawyer answered, "I need every piece of paperwork on the house. Tonight." She was silent a moment. "Dorothy, what happened?" So I told her. Every word. Amanda's ultimatum, Michael's betrayal, the way they tossed aside $87,000 as if it were pocket change. I could hear Margaret typing furiously. "Dorothy, I've been worried this day would come. The way they treat your money as a gift instead of what it really was." "What it really was?" I asked, heart pounding. "Don't you remember? The papers I had you sign after you voiced concerns about Amanda's spending? Dorothy, that money wasn't a gift. Legally? And that's where the story turns." "Dorothy," Margaret said firmly, "this isn't a gift they can toss aside. You're on the loan. Your name is on the deed. That makes you a 35% owner of that house." I almost dropped the phone. "You're serious?" "Very." Amanda never signed the acknowledgement forms I sent. You wanted to keep the peace, so you didn't press it. But the bank recognizes you as a co-borrower. The county records show your share. It's ironclad. Through the window, I saw Amanda parading her dress for a video call, laughing and twirling, clueless to how quickly her world was about to spin. "Margaret, just hypothetically, what if I decided to sell my share? As co-owner, you can. Michael and Amanda would have the chance to buy you out at market value. If they can't, the entire property gets listed and the proceeds split by percentage." That image nearly made me laugh. My son popping champagne like he'd been set free from his burden of a mother, unaware that his so-called dream home might soon hit the open market. "Draw up the notice of intent to sell," I said. "Deliver it Monday morning. Margaret hesitated. Dorothy, once this begins, I've never been more certain of anything. I hung up and sat in the twilight, watching my son toast the woman who wanted me erased from their lives. They had no clue their foundation was about to collapse. But first, I had one more call to make. Sunset Gardens Country Club, how may I help you? Hello, this is Dorothy Mitchell. I need to speak with the catering manager about tomorrow's reception. The woman on the line brightened. Oh, Mrs. Mitchell, how wonderful! The wedding is tomorrow, yes? What can we do for you? There's been a change of plans. I'd like to cancel the reception. A pause. Cancel? But the food is prepared, the staff scheduled. I understand, and I'll cover the cancellation. Fees. But I'm the one who signed the contract and paid the deposit. That gives me the right to cancel. Shuffling papers. Yes, it is under your name. But shouldn't you speak with the bride and groom? No need. They've made it very clear my role is unwanted. I'm simply honoring their request. By the time the call ended, I was checked into a modest hotel across town, eating room service with the TV humming softly in the background. For the first time in years, I felt something close to freedom. At 11:47 p.m., my phone nearly rattled off the nightstand. What did you do? Amanda's shrill voice pierced through. I muted the television. Exactly what you asked. You wanted me gone, so I left. The country club says you canceled our reception. 200 people are expecting dinner tomorrow. That does sound like a problem, I said evenly. Michael's voice came next, urgent and angry. Mom, this is crazy. You can't just cancel our wedding over a fight. I didn't cancel your wedding, I told him. You can still exchange vows. I only canceled the reception I was paying for, the one costing me $14,000. Silence. Dead silence. I'd never told them the figure before. I let them believe generosity came easy. Let them bask in the illusion that I had endless reserves. Now Amanda's voice was a faint whisper. 14,000? The photographer, the band, the flowers. Did you think any of it was free? I asked. Did you think money just falls from the sky because you wanted a fairy tale wedding? Michael stuttered. But we can't tell 200 people there's no reception. You're both adults. Be creative. Order in. I've heard McDonald's caters now, I said, my voice calm, almost playful. Amanda's sobbing grew louder. Once those tears might have broken me. Not anymore. They just sounded like the tantrums I'd endured for months. How could you do this to us? We trusted you, she cried. Trusted me? I repeated. You told me to vanish from your family. I'm simply honoring your request. I didn't mean forever, she wailed. I just meant for the weekend. Oh, silly me, I said. I should have magically understood that when you said permanently, you really meant temporarily. Michael jumped in, trying the reasonable son act. Mom, please, let's talk this out like adults. Come back home and we'll figure it out. The home where I'm unwelcome? Where my presence ruins everything? No, thank you. Where are you even staying? Amanda demanded. That's not your concern anymore, I replied. You made it clear I'm on my own. I could hear frantic whispers in the background, 2 panicked kids realizing the safety net had been pulled. Could you at least call the country club back? Michael begged. Explain it was a mistake? It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision, a financial one, made by the person actually footing the bill. But what about the guests? Amanda's family flew in from California. And they'll still see you get married, I said. They just won't be handed a free steak dinner afterward. Amanda snatched the phone again. You're cruel, vindictive. No, sweetheart. Cruel was telling the woman paying for your dream to get out of your life. I'm just being practical with my money. This will ruin everything, she shrieked. Everyone will think we're broke. I let the silence linger. Then, well, aren't you? The line went dead quiet. You've been living beyond your means for months, I said. Do you even know what your budget looks like without me? Have you compared what you earn to what you spend? More whispering. I've been plugging the holes. The groceries I quietly paid for. The utilities I covered when you were short this month. The car repairs, the insurance premiums, the emergencies. You thought those were gifts? Amanda's voice cracked. They were gifts. Were they? Or were they more like an allowance? Because allowances can stop. The silence stretched so long I thought they'd hung up. Then Michael whispered, "What do you want, Mom?" That made me smile. An hour earlier, I was disposable. Now they were ready to bargain. I want what you offered, for me to leave your family. And I'm taking my money with me when I go. By Sunday morning, my phone was filled with missed calls and frantic texts. I ignored them all, sipping coffee in my hotel bed, reading the paper like a woman finally at peace. At 9 a.m., a knock rattled my door. Through the peephole, I saw Michael, hair messy, tuxedo shirt wrinkled, looking like a man who hadn't slept. "Mom, please. We need to talk." I opened the door but didn't step aside. "Shouldn't you be getting dressed? For your wedding?" His eyes were red, frantic. Amanda's locked herself in the bathroom. Her mother's threatening to fly back home. Everything's falling apart. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "I hope you figure it out." "Figure it out?" He snapped. "You destroyed our wedding." "No, son. I just withdrew my support. There's a difference." He pushed past me into the room, pacing like a trapped animal. I let him. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let people listen to their own words. "This is insane. Over a misunderstanding about where you'd sleep?" "Sit down, Michael." Something in my voice made him obey. "This isn't about a bedroom, it's about respect, gratitude, about treating the person who carried you and lifted you like she matters." "We've always treated you well," he protested weakly. "Have you? When was the last time you asked me about my life? Invited me somewhere because you wanted my company, not my wallet? When was the last time you cared about me as your mother, not your bank account?" His mouth opened, then closed. Wait," I said, and the silence pressed down, heavier than any words. I shifted in my seat, fixing him with a steady gaze. "When was the last time you called me just to hear my voice? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without Facebook nudging you? When was the last time you treated me like your mother, not like a bottomless wallet?" "That's not fair, Mom," Michael muttered. "Isn't it?" I shot back. "In the past year alone, how much money have I handed over to you and Amanda?" He rubbed his temples. "I don't know. A couple thousand here and there. Emergencies." $37,000, I said evenly. His head snapped up, color draining from his face. 37,000 in so-called emergencies, plus the 87,000 for your down payment. That's a total of $124,000, Michael. More than most people take home in 2 years. He swallowed hard. "We were always planning to pay you back." "Were you?" I arched an eyebrow. "Because Amanda's been shopping for a new car, and you've been browsing European vacation packages, but neither of you has ever once mentioned repayment." He sagged forward, burying his face in his hands. "What do you want from me, Mom?" "I want you to understand that I am not your ATM. That generosity has limits. That when you treat someone like a resource instead of a person long enough, eventually they stop showing up for you." "So this is punishment?" He shot back bitterly. "You're wrecking our wedding day just to teach us a lesson? Cruelty in his tone told me everything. He didn't see my boundaries as survival. He saw them as vengeance. "No, Michael," I said softly but firmly. "I'm protecting myself. I'm ending a cycle of financial abuse." He scoffed. "Financial abuse? That's absurd." "Is it? You've made me believe my worth to your family is purely financial. You've trained me to accept scraps of affection in exchange for massive sacrifices. You've guilted me for wanting anything in return while bleeding me dry. That's abuse, whether you want to call it that or not." I leaned closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. "Yesterday, Amanda told me the best gift I could give your family was to disappear. And you agreed." "She didn't mean it," he whispered. "Yes, she did. And so did you. Which is why," I paused, letting the silence stretch, "you're about to get exactly what you asked for." His head jerked up. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled then, but it was sharp, cold. "It means you and Amanda are on your own now. You'd better hope her parents are feeling generous. And you might want to start researching rental listings because the house situation about to change. What house situation? He demanded, his voice rising. I'm talking about the paperwork you never read when your father and I helped you with that down payment. The documents that make me co-owner of your precious house. The blood drained from his face completely. That's right, sweetheart, I said. I own 35% of that house, and I'm about to put it on the market. Michael stared at me like I'd started speaking another language. You can't own part of our house. We bought it. We live there. With my $87,000, I reminded him. Did you think that money just evaporated? That it wasn't tied to anything? You said it was a gift. You said you wanted to help us. I pulled out my phone, scrolling until I found the email from Margaret. My lawyer thought differently. She made sure my investment was protected. Would you like me to read the clause? Aloud? His hands shook. This can't be real. Amanda would have had to sign something. She was supposed to, I said. She kept putting it off, but Margaret filed everything anyway. Michael was trembling now, somewhere between fury and fear. You planned this, he whispered. You've been plotting all along. I shook my head slowly. If I'd been plotting, Michael, I wouldn't have spent $14,000 on a wedding for people who told me to vanish. He shook his head, his voice breaking. You've been planning this the whole time. I almost laughed. Oh, sweetheart. If I'd been plotting, don't you think I would have done it long before I spent $14,000 on a wedding for people who told me to disappear? If I were scheming, I would have pulled the plug months ago. The weight of that landed. His shoulders sagged. So, what happens now? His voice was thin, defeated. Now you have a decision to make, I said calmly. You can either buy out my 35% share of the house at current market value, or we put it up for sale and split the proceeds. His head jerked up. We can't buy you out. The house is worth $300,000 now. 35% of that is over $100,000. I know, I said evenly. I can do math. That's how I have money. And why you two are constantly drowning. He winced. We're not drowning. We just have a lot of expenses. I didn't let him off the hook. Michael, your household brings in $8,000 a month. Your mortgage alone is $2,400. Add car payments, credit cards, utilities, groceries, and Amanda's shopping habit, and you're spending more than you make every single month. His eyes widened. How do you even know that? Because for the last 3 years, I've been filling in the gaps. Did you think the money fairy was sneaking envelopes under your pillow? The hotel phone rang before he could answer. I picked it up. Mrs. Mitchell, said a cheerful voice. This is Jessica from Sunset Gardens. I have the bride's mother, on another line. She wants to know if today's reception can be reinstated. She says she'll cover all costs if you'll allow it. I glanced at Michael. His face lit up with desperate hope. That's generous of her, Jessica, I said, but I'm afraid the answer is no. Mom, please, Michael started, but I raised a hand to silence him. Jessica, explain to Mrs. Haworth that there are family issues at play. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to let someone else pay for an event I chose to cancel. Please confirm the cancellation and send the final bill to this hotel. I'll settle everything myself. I understand, she said softly. When I hung up, I turned back to Michael. There you go. Amanda's mother was willing to spend $14,000 to salvage your party. She planned this wedding for months, invited her whole country club. Michael's voice was tight. She's devastated. How nice for her, I said dryly. Too bad her daughter couldn't manage to show the slightest respect for the person who was already footing the bill. He pulled out his phone. I need to call Amanda. We need to figure out the house situation. Go ahead, I said. But when you talk to your wife, make sure she understands something. He froze mid-dial. What? I am not the same woman who left your house last night. That woman was still trying to keep peace at any cost. This woman? I leaned forward. She's finished being used. His voice cracked. You're really going to force us to sell our home? I'm going to exercise my legal rights as a co-owner. What you do with that is up to you. He left without another word, no doubt off to deliver the worst possible news to Amanda on the day that was supposed to be her fairy tale. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Amanda. Her voice was raw with tears. Dorothy, we need to talk. No, darling, I said softly. We really don't. Yesterday, you made it clear you weren't interested in talking to me. I was upset, she cried, stressed about the wedding. I didn't mean what I said. Of course you were upset, I replied. It must be exhausting pretending to tolerate someone you so clearly despise. I don't despise you, Amanda whispered. In the 3 years since you moved into the house I bought, you've never once said thank you. Not once. You've never asked about my life, my health, my interests. The only invitations I've ever received were when you needed a babysitter, a casserole, or a check. That's not true, she protested. Really? I asked quietly. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? Silence. Save yourself the effort, I said. The answer is never. You've never called me just to care. She sniffled. But you're Michael's mother. Your family. You told me yesterday the best gift I could give this. Family was to disappear. Today you're calling me family. Which is it, Amanda? Her answer came in sobs, raw, hiccuping cries that once would have sent me running for tissues. Now they only sounded like the consequences she'd spent years avoiding. Dorothy, please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll pay you back. I raised an eyebrow. Pay me back? With what? You don't have an income. Remember, you're a full-time homemaker in a house you couldn't afford without me. I'll get a job, she blurted. That's an excellent plan, truly. But it doesn't solve today's problem, or the fact that you and Michael owe me $124,000. The line went dead quiet. At minimum wage, I added softly. It would take you 6 years to earn that. And that's assuming you didn't eat, pay rent, or buy a single thing in the meantime. I could practically hear the weight of that, number sinking into her chest. By 4 o'clock, they'd tried 16 more times. I answered none. Instead, I enjoyed a late lunch in the hotel restaurant, sipping wine and watching the local news. There it was, live footage of a weeping bride on the steps of Sunset Gardens. The reporter never said her name, but anyone could recognize Amanda. Excuse me, aren't you Dorothy Mitchell? I looked up. A woman with perfect gray hair and kind, appraising eyes stood beside my table. She seemed familiar. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Barbara Hayworth, she said, extending a hand. Amanda's mother. Now this would be interesting. She gestured to the empty chair. May I? I nodded, curiosity piqued. I wanted to thank you. That I hadn't expected. Thank you, she repeated, for showing my daughter exactly who she is. She ordered coffee with the calm efficiency of someone who had managed social crises for decades. I've worried about Amanda for years, she admitted. The entitlement, the way she talks down to people, the absolute lack of gratitude. I thought maybe marriage would soften her edges. But now, after seeing how she treats the woman who made her entire lifestyle possible, I'm horrified. Her coffee arrived and she took a slow, deliberate sip. I offered to cover the reception, she continued. Not because Amanda deserved it, but because I felt bad for the guests. But you were right to refuse. Was I? I asked cautiously. Yes, Barbara said firmly. Amanda needed this. Real consequences. Ones that couldn't be patched. Over with Daddy's checkbook or Mommy's phone calls. I studied her. Sharp woman, honest in a way I hadn't expected. She called me hysterical this morning, Barbara went on, begging me to lend her money so she could buy out your share of the house. I told her no. If she wanted to own it, she should have respected the co-owner from the start. A small, genuine smile tugged at my lips. A woman after my own heart. Barbara tilted her head. But tell me, Dorothy, what's your endgame? Are you really going to force a sale? Truthfully, I didn't know. Part of me wants to let them figure it out on their own. Part of me wants to sell just to watch the little castle crumble. And part of me still remembers Michael as my son. She nodded knowingly. I understand. But may I give you some advice? From one mother of an ungrateful child to another? Please, I said, don't save them. Whatever you decide, don't cushion the fall. Amanda has never faced real consequences for her behavior. It's turned her into someone I barely recognize. If you rescue them now, she'll never change. She reached into her purse and slid a card across the table. I'm flying back to California tomorrow. But if you ever need someone who understands exactly what it's like to love a child who doesn't love you back, call me. And with that, Barbara left me alone with her words, which lingered heavier than the wine in my glass. I sat staring at my phone, its constant buzzing a reminder of how desperate they'd become. I hadn't made a decision yet. For weeks I'd been defending myself, drawing lines in the sand. But now the real question loomed. How did I want this to end? I could press the red button, force a sale. They'd be shoved into a cramped apartment, far from the neighborhood they flaunted, finally learning what it meant to survive on their own. Or I could be merciful, offer them my share at cost and let them cling to the house a little longer. And then there was the most tempting choice. Of all, keep my stake forever, collect my share of the expenses, and watch them squirm with every passing month. My phone lit up again. But this time, it wasn't Amanda or Michael. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Detective Rodriguez with the Virginia Beach Police Department. I'm calling regarding a report we received about financial elder abuse. The words made my chest tighten. I'm sorry, what? We had a tip suggesting your family has been exploiting you financially and that you may be experiencing cognitive decline. We've been asked to perform a welfare check. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then, the fury hit. Amanda and Michael, those manipulative little vipers, were trying to turn the tables. Detective, I assure you I am perfectly capable of managing my own life. In fact, I've never thought more clearly. That's reassuring, ma'am, he replied evenly. But we do need to follow up. Could you meet with me tomorrow morning? I glanced around the restaurant at the clinking glasses and quiet chatter of people who weren't fighting wars with their own children. A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. Yes, detective. In fact, I'd be happy to. I have a great deal to share with you about financial abuse, just not the kind you were told about. The next morning, I walked into the station with my entire financial history in hand. Rodriguez was younger than I'd imagined, early 40s. Maybe, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a calm patience that probably diffused many family disputes. He began carefully. Mrs. Mitchell, I want you to know, the caller sounded genuinely concerned for your well-being. I'm sure she did, I said dryly. My daughter-in-law can sound very convincing when it suits her. I spread bank statements across his desk like evidence in a trial. Over the last 3 years, I've given my son and his wife $124,000. Every check, every transfer, every credit card bill I've covered, it's all here. His eyebrows rose as he flipped through the pages. That's significant. Yes. And the moment I finally told them no, suddenly I'm mentally unstable. I pulled out my phone and played Amanda's voicemail from the night before. Dorothy, this is crazy. Normal people don't destroy their families over hurt feelings. We're worried about you. Please get some help. Michael thinks you might be having a breakdown. Rodriguez listened in silence, jotting notes. Any history of cognitive issues, Mrs. Mitchell? None, I said firmly. I pay my bills, run my own household, drive myself wherever I need to go. The only thing that's changed is that I stopped being their ATM. I slid one last folder across the desk, legal documents showing my rightful ownership of the house. Amanda and Michael were so desperate to keep. I slid the final set of papers across the detective's desk. My attorney can confirm, I'm a registered co-owner of that property. Every decision I've made has been legal, documented, and in my best financial interest. As for the wedding, I wasn't about to bankroll a celebration for people who told me the best gift I could give was disappearing. I decided to take them at their word. Rodriguez and I spoke for another 20 minutes. He asked pointed questions, but he listened carefully, and by the end, I could see the shift in his expression. He was convinced. Mrs. Mitchell, he said, I'll be closing this as an unfounded report. But I do want you to have some resources on elder financial exploitation, just in case. Thank you, Detective, I said, standing. But trust me, I think I've finally got this handled. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again. Michael's name. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom, the police called. They said the welfare check is closed. That's right. Because, darling, I'm not the victim here. You are. A long pause. What does that mean? It means you and Amanda have been siphoning money from me for years, and when I finally said no, you tried to paint me as incompetent. The detective found my documentation very enlightening. Another silence, then low and tense. Are you threatening us? I'm informing you that your little games don't work anymore. Mom, please, let's just sit down and talk this through. Fine, I said, but not in our house, and not until Amanda apologizes for her behavior. She's sorry, he rushed. She's been crying for 2 days straight. Has she? Because her 3 a.m. voicemail made it sound like she thinks I'm insane, not that she regrets her words. Michael hesitated. Where do you want to meet? Margaret Chen's office. Tomorrow at 2. Bring Amanda, and bring a serious proposal about the house. No stalling, no excuses. He exhaled heavily. What kind of proposal? Michael, I own 35% of an asset worth $300,000. That's my retirement. You either buy me out or we sell. Those are the only options. When I hung up, I realized something new. For the first time in years, they needed something from me. Margaret's office was all polished wood, shelves lined with law journals, the perfect neutral ground. Michael and Amanda shuffled in 15 minutes late, tension radiating from them. Amanda's eyes were swollen, her makeup streaked from days of tears. For a fleeting second, I felt pity. Then I remembered her words. The best gift would be if... You disappeared. Dorothy? She began the moment she sat down, voice trembling. I owe you a huge apology. I was stressed. I lashed out. I didn't mean it. Thank you, I said evenly. That's a start. She blinked, almost startled. I didn't instantly forgive. Margaret spread the documents across the table with crisp precision. The record shows Dorothy contributed $87,000 to the down payment. The mortgage lists her as co-borrower, and the deed confirms her 35% ownership. Michael frowned, scanning the papers like they might magically erase themselves. We didn't realize she had a formal stake. You would have, Margaret said coolly, if Amanda had signed the acknowledgement forms. I sent them 3 times. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. I was busy with the wedding for 3 years? Margaret's voice cut like a knife. I let the silence hang before leaning in. Here are your choices. Option 1. You buy out my 35% share at current market value, $95,000. Option 2. We sell the house and divide the proceeds accordingly. Amanda's face drained of color. We don't have that kind of money. Michael's voice was low, defeated. If we sell, we'll have to move. Yes, I said. To something you can actually afford. Amanda's eyes darted to me. What about another arrangement? Something else? There is no something else. My tone was final. Margaret tapped her calculator. At current value, a sale nets around $270 after fees. Dorothy would take about $95. That leaves you with $175 for new housing. Amanda gave a bitter laugh. That's not enough for anything decent. Margaret didn't flinch. It's enough for something honest. An apartment or a smaller house in a more realistic neighborhood, I said evenly. The kind of place people with your income can actually afford. Michael dragged his hands through his hair. Mom, is there any way we could work out some kind of payment plan? Monthly installments until we've bought out your share? I'd been expecting this. At what interest rate? With what collateral? Because let's be honest, you've already proven you don't honor financial agreements. That's not fair, he snapped. Isn't it? You still owe me $37,000 in emergency loans you never once tried to repay. Why would I trust you with another $100,000? 1,000? Amanda dissolved into tears again. This is going to ruin our lives. No, Amanda, I said firmly. This is going to force you to live within your means for the first time in your life, she hiccuped through her sobs. But what about our credit? Our reputation? I almost laughed. Your credit? Honey, your credit is already in shambles. You've been late on nearly every bill for months. I know because I've been quietly bailing you out. Margaret cleared her throat. Legally speaking, Dorothy is being more than generous here. She has every right to force a sale outright. These options are her attempt at compromise. Michael's voice was small. How long do we have to decide? 30 days, I said. Plenty of time to explore financing or face reality. As we rose to leave, Amanda clutched my arm. Dorothy, please, I know I hurt you, but we're family. Doesn't that count for something? I looked at her hand, then her tear-streaked face. Family is supposed to count for something, Amanda. That's the point. 2 weeks into their 30-day deadline, I had an unexpected knock at my hotel door. Barbara Worth stood there, holding a bottle of wine and wearing the look of a woman with unfinished business. I hope you don't mind, she said. Margaret gave me your hotel information. I let her in, curious. I came to check on the kids, she explained, settling gracefully into the armchair, and to check on you. How are they? I asked. Terrible, she admitted. Amanda's spiraling with panic attacks. Michael's working himself to death trying to get a loan. They're fighting constantly. I poured wine into 2 glasses, surprised that their misery brought me less satisfaction than I'd expected. Barbara, you're not here to ask me to reconsider, are you? Actually, no. She swirled her glass. I'm here to tell you about Amanda's father, that I hadn't expected. Richard spoiled her rotten, every tantrum rewarded. Every consequence erased, every failure blamed on someone else. When Amanda was 16, she crashed her car driving drunk. Instead of letting her face charges, Richard hired the best attorney money could buy and made the whole thing disappear. Why tell me this? Because I finally see it now. Our daughter's problems aren't going to be solved with more money or more rescuing. She reached into her purse and pulled out a check. Amanda begged me to give you this, $25,000 as a good faith payment. I stared at it, but didn't touch it. And what did you say? I said no. That check was from Richard's life insurance policy, money I'd been saving for Amanda's inheritance. But giving it to her now would just repeat the same pattern. And with that, Barbara calmly tore the check in half. Barbara, that's a lot of money. Money she hasn't earned and doesn't deserve. Dorothy, I want you to know, whatever you decide about that house, you have my support. Even if it means they lose everything. Especially then. Maybe starting over will finally teach Amanda gratitude. When she left, I sat in silence, staring at the torn halves of the check. For 3 years, I'd been just as guilty of enabling as Barbara and Richard. Every time I covered a shortfall, every check I wrote, I was teaching them someone would always catch them. The question now was, what kind of lesson did I want them to learn? My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Mom, we've been approved for a home equity loan. $60,000 toward buying you out. Can we meet to discuss a payment plan for the rest? I stared at the message for a long moment. It wasn't ideal, but it was effort. More effort than they'd shown in years. I typed back, we can discuss it. But first, I want to see a full household budget and a realistic plan to pay off your debts, not just mine. His reply came instantly. Anything you want, Mom. We just want to make this right. For the first time since all this began, that sounded like progress. At the budget meeting, the truth spilled out across Margaret's table like evidence in a trial. All right, I said, scanning the paperwork. $400 a month on restaurants. Amanda bristled. We both work long hours. Sometimes we're too tired to cook. You don't work at all, Amanda. I didn't look up. Michael works. You shop, which, by the way, costs $300 a month on clothing. I need to look professional for social events. What social events? You don't even have a job. Amanda's cheeks flushed crimson, but I pressed on. $200 a month on premium cable and streaming. $150 on your gym membership. You use twice a month if that. $800 in credit card minimums. For shopping sprees and vacations you couldn't afford. Michael was quietly adding on his phone calculator. Mom, I know it looks bad. It is bad. You're living a $12,000 a month lifestyle on an $8,000 income, and your solution is to take out a home equity loan? Amanda jumped in hopefully. If we use the loan to clear the credit cards, our monthly payments drop, and we could finally breathe. I glanced at Margaret. She was jotting notes with her usual crisp detachment. You'd be borrowing against your home to pay for luxuries. And when you max the cards again, then what? Amanda's voice rose. We won't. We've learned. Have you? Because your budget still screams denial. You're still dining out like teenagers, paying for memberships you barely use, shopping as if it's therapy. Michael leaned forward. Then what would convince you we're serious? Finally, the right question. I want a budget that matches reality. Cook at home, cancel the extras, and Amanda, get a job. A job? Amanda's face drained of color. Yes, a job. You're 39. You have a degree. There's no reason. You can't help support your household. Michael's salary isn't enough. Not when you've been quietly supplementing it with my money for 3 years. Margaret cleared her throat. Dorothy, what exactly are you proposing? I'd been rehearsing this for days. Here's my offer. You buy me out for $75,000, less than full market value, but with conditions. Their eyes lit up. 1. Amanda gets a job within 60 days and keeps it for 2 years. 2. You sell 1 car and use the proceeds for debt reduction. 3. You live on a real budget. No restaurants, no shopping binges, no new debt for 2 years. Michael frowned. How do you plan to enforce that? Monthly check-ins with Margaret. You'll provide bank statements, credit reports, proof of income. If you break the deal, the full $105,000 becomes due immediately, Amanda whispered. That's like being in financial prison. No, it's called accountability. They asked for a moment in the hallway. Margaret leaned toward me. This is either extremely generous or merciless. Maybe both, I said. When they returned, Michael spoke. We'll do it. All of it. Amanda nodded reluctantly, her jaw tight. Margaret began drafting the paperwork. This will be notarized and filed with the county recorder. I watched as my son and his wife signed away their financial freedom for the next 2 years. A strange mix of victory and sorrow hit me, but mostly relief, because this was the lesson they should have learned decades ago. Family doesn't mean free money. Choices have consequences. 6 months later, in my new apartment, a cheerful senior community with walking trails and a pool, I got a call. Dorothy, Amanda said softly. I got the job. Amanda had started as a receptionist at a dental office. Now she'd been promoted to office manager. That's wonderful, honey. How do you feel? Exhausted, she laughed. A real laugh, the first I'd heard in years. But proud. I never knew I was good at organizing things. You always were, I told her. You just never had to use those skills before. There was a pause. Then, Dorothy, I owe you an apology. A real one, not the panicked mess from Margaret's office. I'm listening. I was awful to you, for years. I treated you like an ATM and got angry when you dared to have feelings about it. I told myself you were dramatic, but the truth is I was entitled. And cruel. I set down my coffee, surprised by how deeply her words hit me. What changed your mind? Working. Earning every dollar instead of asking for it. Realizing how hard it is to save even $100 when bills keep coming. And finally understanding what you sacrificed for us. Michael's getting there too. He still thinks you were harsh, but he admits we needed it. Outside, I saw neighbors in the community garden where I'd signed up for spring planting. How are things between you two? I asked. Better. We actually talk now. We cook. We walk instead of shop. It feels lighter. I'm glad. Dorothy, would you come to dinner? Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti. Conversation that isn't about money. The old me would have said yes in a heartbeat, desperate to patch things up. The new me had boundaries. I'd like that, but let's start with lunch in a public place. Baby steps. Of course, whatever makes you comfortable. After we hung up, I sat quietly, realizing how different this conversation felt. Amanda had spoken like an adult, taking responsibility instead of making excuses. Maybe the lesson had finally landed. A text buzzed in. Heard about Amanda's promotion. Thank you for not giving up on her, I replied. Thank you for not bailing her out, because sometimes love isn't saying yes. Sometimes love is saying no. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the weight of their choices. Let them find strength they didn't know they had. For 3 years, I'd been their safety net. And in holding them up, I'd kept them from learning to stand. When I finally stepped back, they learned to fly. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. The sun was setting over the walking trail. Tomorrow I'd join a senior hiking group, and the day after, lunch with Frank, the man from book club who made me laugh. At 68, I was finally discovering what it meant to be valued for who I was, not for what I could give, and that was worth more than all the money in the world. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters.